Welcome to the Striking Sparks podcast, an outreach of the Mid-South Annual Conference of the Global Methodist Church. Join us while we consider how to stir up one another in love and good works. We welcome you to heart-sharpening conversations of iron sharpening iron in Striking Sparks.
Welcome to another episode of Striking Sparks. Thank you for joining us. We have a conversation for you today that is going to expand your horizons, perhaps. Unless you're from West Virginia, then your horizons are already expanded. But it is recognizing that we are a large conference covering significant territory, and we want to just have everybody feel included in that. So we've brought a representative of the West Virginia district of the Mid-South Conference. Daniel Fulton is the presiding elder of that district and has been for a time and is ready to be introduced as your next best friend. Daniel, glad to have you with us.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
What would you want to tell us about how you came into the role that you're in now? And you can go back further than that if you'd like to, how you came into ministry, how you came into faith relationship with your Savior.
Wow, that's a lot of story to try and cover.
Yeah.
I grew up in a Christian home. My parents are both strong Christians. My dad is also a Methodist pastor. He's now senior status with the Mid-South Conference. He last served in South Shore, Kentucky, before going senior status. So I grew up kind of around the West Virginia annual conference of the UMC. We also spent time in Kansas with the Church of the Nazarene, and in Southern Ohio with the Church of the Nazarene. So I grew up around the faith, came to know Jesus early in life. I was probably 5 or 6 years old when I came to understand that I needed Jesus, and been following him since then. Of course, there's been ups and downs along the pathway, but that's been the joy and the grace of growing up in a Christian home, and has always been a reminder to me of the importance of family being the first church of especially children, to know that that's where so much of faith formation happens. After high school, I went to Bible college at Circleville Bible College, which became Ohio Christian University in Circleville, Ohio. Did an undergrad in Bible and theology there. Had wrestled with the call to ministry through the last several years of high school. Did not see myself going into ministry. Loved the church. I loved Christ. But one thing I knew as especially a young teenager, I was not going to go into ministry. Was not going to follow my father's footsteps in that direction. I just saw I saw both the beautiful side of church and also sometimes the side that's a little more difficult with church as growing up in a parsonage home. And so about midway through high school, and I struggled tremendously with speaking in front of people. I remember in a high school English class having to give an oral presentation and feeling like I was going to pass out in front of the class because the room just started spinning. I got so nervous, had to go in later and give the presentation to the teacher alone because I just couldn't finish it. And it was around that same time that I started feeling God saying, "You're going to go into ministry." And I thought, you got to be kidding. Through a long story that I won't share all of right now, but through a long series of events, God kept confirming to me that that's where he wanted me to serve. And so I eventually surrendered to the call and went to Bible college at Circleville. Initially went into ministry in the Church of the Nazarene. Served with them for about 7 years. Wonderful time at the Church of the Nazarene. They're a great group. Had nothing but positive experiences with them. Eventually felt a pull back to the United Methodist Church after being away for a while. So I served several years in a United Methodist pastorate in northeast West Virginia, up around the Maryland border, and then as things began to shake out as as they did with our former denomination. I got very involved with the Wesleyan Covenant Association, and that led to a lot of connections across the region, and uh, including eventually connections that led to conversations with Mike Powers and others who were early leaders in the Mid South. We began talking about what would look like for West Virginia to come in as part of this Kentucky conference initially that was being established, and then grew into the Mid South annual conference. And so, as far as ending up in the role that I'm in now as presiding elder, it was. I tell people they're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. They got who they could get. I was the only elder available at the time when we started forming the annual conference, and so somewhere along the way, the conversation was had with me: would you be willing to serve as presiding elder? Because otherwise, it's going to be somebody who's not from West Virginia. And with fear and trembling, I said yes, and I still kind of wonder sometimes what I've gotten myself into. But it's been a blessing. It's been a challenge. We've seen God's work unfolding in incredible ways, and we have a lot of challenges ahead of us in West Virginia. Right now, we have 14 GMC charges that include 15 churches. We have one multi-point charge. For a state that has traditionally been the largest state of Methodism per capita in the U.S., and at one point had the largest number, just straight number of Methodist churches. It was prior to the EUB merger, but at one point had the largest number of Methodist churches of any state in the U.S. Many years ago. And so, for a state that has been so strong in Methodism to now have only 15 Global Methodist churches really presents to us a unique opportunity for church planting and for continuing to work with groups that have maybe become orphaned after separation. So we have a lot of work ahead, but we're trusting that God's going to provide the direction for that. We've got some big plans that we're starting to formulate for what it could look like to really resource a significant church planting movement in West Virginia, and excited about some partnerships, even conversations I was having earlier today with some folks about what that might look like in partnership with the larger conference.
That was great. Yeah, a lot of story there. And there's such an enjoyment of the connection that has developed uh, in this new movement, and that it is involving a number of different groups from different locations and becoming one body.
Mhm.
Um, you had some, you were in the middle of some of the unique challenges in West Virginia. There's a commonality between all of us, but in locations there's unique challenges, and you've been a part of helping congregations do the disaffiliation process,
Mhm.
and that season is past now, and essentially, and
It is. There's no longer a pathway, at least in the West Virginia Conference. There's no longer a pathway towards disaffiliation in the way that there was in other conferences before. The pathway in West Virginia has always been difficult, but now the only pathway that remains is for a church to abandon their property, and when it goes back up for sale in the market, they'd be able to potentially, among other buyers, look at the possibility of buying the property back.
Mhm.
But there's no formal pathway any longer.
so it's a forward movement time, and
Yes.
developing new congregations,
Mhm.
and then any who do find that way to make that disaffiliate, well, not disaffiliation, but just transition out of the property into a new identity, and to invite them into the Global Methodist Church. That kind of process is part of what you do.
Yes.
Um, what do you see ahead for new churches developing that particular route of church growth and the planting side?
Yeah. So our conference is doing already some really excellent work. We've got Brian Ebel, who is heading up our church planting ministry for the annual conference, who is working now to establish some some kind of pathways towards training and We're also working on providing fellowship opportunities among church planters, and so developing kind of a more organized system of moving from saying I'm interested in planting a church to how do I get to training to how do I actually on the ground do this in the Global Methodist Church. Um, and so Brian's bringing a tremendous amount of work in that direction for the entire annual conference. And so we are looking closely at how to link up with Brian and his team. We're also looking at developing potentially our own um, organization, whether it's something that we spin off as its own corporation or just under the auspices of the district, to try and encourage church planters to come into West Virginia, to view West Virginia as a missional opportunity for church planting. Recently, the American Religion Census released their data for the entire country on kind of what the state of the church is. That's not their language, but mine. But one of the numbers that really stuck out to me was that that religious affiliation in West Virginia is only at 37.5%. I would have estimated it at higher than that. Those are people who self-claim any religious affiliation at all, whether that's a Christian church or an Islamic mosque or whatever the case may be, any religious affiliation at all is only at 37.5% in West Virginia. There are places that we send missionaries that have higher religious affiliation rates than that. And so we really are in the middle of a mission field. And so we're going to work on finding ways to connect with potential church planters. In fact, if you're a potential church planter and you're listening to this right now, reach out to me. I'm easy to find on the Mid South website. Um, be happy to talk to you about possibilities that we have in West Virginia. We have right now several church plants that are in various states of growth in West Virginia. We have one that has really just taken off. They're growing. They're strong in the Huntington area. We have a second one that's a little newer in Charleston. That's where I pastor as well. It's Wellspring Global Methodist. We've got a church plant in Elizabeth. We've got a church plant up in Parsons. And I hope I'm not forgetting any of them. But off the top of my head, I think that's all of our current church plants. And so we've got groups that are working hard right now to establish churches. We have several areas where we're in conversations with either small groups or just lone church planters about possibilities in their communities as well.
Daniel, I've got a question for you regarding those numbers. 30, you said 37%,
37.5.
37.5%. Have you seen any study, or have you, since that number is now known to you, have you seen some trends that maybe led that way, where it's led to such a small number? And I would actually argue we probably are closer to that in a lot of places than we want to admit to. But have you seen any trends in your area, in particular in West Virginia, that might stand out and say this is probably why we're at 37.5%?
That's an excellent question. Um, and I've not seen any studies to that end, so it would just be anecdotal observation on my part. I think it. I think a lot of it comes down um, to the lack of catechesis in the church. Um, I think about the fact that as Methodists, we had such a hold on West Virginia for so long. At one point, there were well over 1,000 Methodist churches across the state that has less than 2 million people, and it's incredible to me to think that we've gone from having such a presence to not only a numeric decline, but a decline in religious affiliation. Um, in a state that still carries uh, much of the kind of the cultural ethics that you would expect in a highly churched state, um, but without the religious commitments that have come with that, I think a lack of catechesis in the church, a lack of passing on to our children and their children why we believe what we believe, and leading them to dynamic relationship with Jesus. It's easy to walk away from religious ritual. It's a lot harder to walk away from knowing that my Redeemer lives, and on the last day I will see him face to face.
So much for this time with us. And thank you for tuning in and taking in this message. MidSouthGMC.org is that website that would connect you with Daniel and all that's going on in West Virginia. It can be found there, MidSouthGMC.org. But thank you so much for coming and sharing with us not only what you're in the middle of, but it's some of who you are. And it's good to get to know you and forward to all that is to come.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be here.
Thank you for tuning in to the Striking Sparks podcast, an outreach of the Mid-South Annual Conference of the Global Methodist Church. We pray you found some enriching and engaging conversation to take with you today. If you're watching us, please like and subscribe on YouTube. On Apple and Spotify, we ask that you follow and leave us a 5-star review. If you have any questions or suggestions for topics in the future, please email us at strikingsparks@midsouthgmc.org.